Last season was arguably one of Barcelona's worst ones in the last 20 years. Not only did they not win a single trophy, they got hammered in every competition. 4-1 against Real Madrid in the Spanish Super Cup, 4-1 at home against PSG in the Champions League, 4-2 against Athletic Club in the Copa del Rey, and last but not least, they lost the league to Real Madrid by 10 points. Sure, there were good aspects to last season as well. Lamine Yamal and Pau Cubarsí broke through, and if it wasn't for Araujo's red card against PSG, Barcelona would have maybe gotten really far into the Champions League. But everyone will agree that for Barcelona standards, last season simply sucked. Laporta was thinking the same thing, so he decided to sack Xavi and replace him with Hansi Flick. And wow. We're only a couple of months into the season, but Barcelona already look like a completely different team compared to 1 year ago. They play the best football we've seen Barcelona play in years, and they're comfortably on top of the league. So what kind of magic did Hansi Flick use to suddenly change Barcelona like this? Well, that's what this video is all about, so let's just get straight to it. First of all, it might be interesting to know why Barcelona weren't this good 1 year ago. What did Xavi actually do wrong last season? Well, if you go back one more year to the 22-23 season, you have a Xavi Barcelona team that was actually quite decent and won the league. Sure, Barcelona didn't always play that fluidly and they relied on their strong defense, but they were a solid team with some world-class performances too. Think about the Super Cup where they destroyed Real Madrid. In this team, Xavi always had the same midfield three in general: Busquets, Frenkie de Jong and Pedri. Gavi often played as some kind of inverted winger on the left. And in attack, Ousmane Dembélé was crucial for Barcelona with his individual actions. The famous BACK defense was then again a perfect combination of attacking and defensive-minded defenders, and all four of these players were in great form all season long. The 22-23 Barcelona team was the best Barcelona we had seen in years. But then last season felt like a step back in the opposite direction. But why exactly? Well, Busquets and Dembélé, two of Xavi's most crucial players, suddenly left. That's why Xavi had to find a new midfield formula. But he never really got a proper replacement for Busquets, and he also didn't really consider Marc Asado, and for Marc Bernal it was maybe still a little too early. Add to that Gavi, Frenkie de Jong and Pedri were all injured at some point during the season. Gundogan, Fermin Lopez and Oriol Romeu were Xavi's only reliable options. So consequently, Barcelona never really had a stable midfield. In attack, Dembélé got replaced by Lamine Yamal, but he could only really consistently play in the second half of the season. At the start, Xavi didn't want to rush anything with him, which was probably a good thing. At the same time, players like Araujo, Koundé, Christensen and Ter Stegen were just not in the same form as 1 year before. So that's why in general, last season often looked like a transition season where Xavi never really found his ideal system. So before you want to start criticizing Xavi, you should probably realize that last season wasn't completely fair for him. Losing Busquets without a replacement, all of the injury problems. I mean, in a different world, Barcelona could have well had a great season last year. However, does that mean that Xavi could have done the same things this season that Hansi Flick is currently doing? Hansi Flick might have a fit Pedri, Koundé, Rafinha and Lamine Yamal, but if you take a look at the injury list, he hasn't been able to use Gavi and Marc Bernal, Dani Olmo, Frenkie de Jong as well in most games, Araujo, Christensen. On top of that, Hansi Flick has discovered Marc Asado and he's made him play to his potential. Something Xavi had the chance to do last season, which could have helped him a lot, but he never gave Casado the same kind of opportunity. So if Xavi would still be at Barcelona right now, we probably wouldn't have seen the same kind of resurrection that we've now had under Hansi Flick. So what exactly makes Hansi Flick that special? What does he do that Xavi didn't do? Well, first of all, Hansi Flick simply has a midfield formula that works. He just uses double pivots behind an attacking midfielder. In the double pivots, there's one real defensive midfielder who stays deep, someone like Marc Asado or even Eric Garcia. Last season, Xavi tried to use Christensen in a similar role, but he's not good enough with the ball in his feet. Oriol Romeu wasn't good enough for Barcelona, and Frenkie de Jong got defensively exposed when playing there. In Hansi Flick's other double pivot role, there's a midfielder who connects everything. Someone like Pedri or also Marc Asado, and probably Frenkie de Jong as well. In attacking midfield, you've got a very dynamic player, someone like Rafinha, Dani Olmo or even Pedri. That is Hansi Flick's formula. If you had to describe it in 2 words, you would probably say dynamic and balanced. Under Xavi last season, there was never the same kind of consistent midfield composition. He was always trying different things and never really found the right solution. You cannot really blame it on injuries if you know that Hansi Flick hasn't been able to use Marc Bernal, Gavi, Dani Olmo and Frenkie de Jong as well in a lot of his games until now, but he has always had a solid midfield structure. However, there is another thing as well. Barcelona are way more dangerous in attack than they were 1 year ago. And if you would tell that to a Barcelona fan who's been in a coma since June, he would probably think that it's because Barcelona have signed Nico Williams. But no, there's not a single new player in attack compared to last season. Yeah, sure, Dani Olmo, but even in his absence, Barcelona are way more of a threat now in attack. So what exactly did Hansi Flick do? Well, there's more movement. Under Xavi, Barcelona relied on the individual actions of wingers to create chances too often. Dembélé in the 22-23 season and Lamine Yamal last year. Now there is a real balance between the left and the right side, because of dynamic players like Rafinha, Balde and Lewandowski, and creators like Lamine Yamal from the right. In terms of movements, Rafinha is arguably Barcelona's most important player. But it's because of his movements that it's also easier for Lewandowski to make dangerous runs and for Lamine Yamal to pick them out. Since Xavi never played with a dynamic left winger or a dynamic attacking midfielder, his Barcelona never had the same fluidity in attack. But you probably know that last season, around March and April, he did put Rafinha on the left instead of João Felix, which did result in more movement, and coincidentally, those were Barcelona's best months of the season. Every player in attack has a pivotal role for making this machine work. As a matter of fact, not just every player in attack. Balde and Koundé as fullbacks, Pedri or Marc Casado as a creator from deep in midfield, Pau Cubarsí with through balls all the way from the defense, the whole system just works really well. There are a lot of dangerous runs, which is really hard to defend, and there are multiple players with creative brilliance to make use of that. And right now, we've not even seen Barcelona with a fully informed Frenkie de Jong, with Xavi, we've only seen very little of Dani Olmo, and who knows, maybe Ansu Fati gets back into form as well. So as you see, the best is probably still yet to come for Barcelona. However, there might be one thing that you're kind of skeptical of when it comes to Barcelona under Hansi Flick, which is the defense. Barcelona this season haven't really had too many clean sheets. They've even conceded lots of goals in some games. I mean, conceding 4 goals against Osasuna, that's not something that Hansi Flick will be proud of, I think. And think about it, Barcelona are yet to face a real world-class team under Hansi Flick. Monaco was their hardest opponent up till now, they lost that game. Sure, Eric Garcia got an early red card, but still, getting that red card is also a sign of defensive vulnerability in itself. So if Barcelona play Real Madrid or Bayern Munich and come up against attackers like Mbappé, Vinicius, Rodrigo, Olise, Harry Kane, will they then actually be able to survive it? Well, I hope so, but we do actually have some solid reasons to hope so. First of all, we have to realize that Hansi Flick simply has a very nerve-wracking, risky way of defending. He plays with a high line, so one of his main defensive weapons is the offside trap, which works really well actually. Barcelona are conceding disallowed goal after disallowed goal after disallowed goal these days. 10 years ago, most of these offside cases would have just been called on immediately, but nowadays there's of course the rule that the ref has to let the game proceed at first. That's why it often seems as if Barcelona's defense is really leaky, when it is really just a brilliant execution of the offside trap. But sure, sometimes the offside trap doesn't work and Barcelona concede. In that case, it often doesn't really matter. Barcelona are usually able of outscoring their opponents. As for their 2 losses up till now, in the game against Monaco, everything just came down to that one single moment where both Ter Stegen and Eric Garcia didn't make the right decision. Eric Garcia was hesitating when he shouldn't have, and Ter Stegen should have just picked out Alejandro Balde probably. It was really an unlucky game overall. And the game against Osasuna, well, Sergi Dominguez committed some crucial mistakes, and Barcelona were kind of unlucky in attack. Hansi Flick really puts his trust in La Masia. Most of the times that's a good choice, but sometimes it can turn out to be the wrong decision. Even then, Sergi Dominguez might still redeem himself and have a great season, you never know. Overall though, unless someone commits a stupid mistake, Barcelona's defense under Hansi Flick is solid. Individual mistakes are the one thing that will cost this Barcelona team the big trophies. Unfortunately, a lot of these players are still inexperienced, so it is likely that at some point in the season, such things will happen. I mean, that's kinda what we saw last year in the Champions League against PSG with Araujo's red card. But in general, this Hansi Flick Barcelona team seems to be a strong candidate to win both La Liga and the Champions League. But I still hear some people saying, a couple of videos ago you called Barcelona average, so this doesn't make sense. Well, some things have changed since then. Back then, which was in the middle of August, we had only seen Barcelona narrowly win against the likes of Valencia, Rayo Vallecano and Athletic Club. Hansi Flick still needed some time to fully establish his new tactics. At the same time, we didn't know whether Lewandowski was going to be able to redeem himself, and we also didn't know whether other players like Rafinha were going to score enough goals. I mean, last season, Barcelona didn't really lack goal-scoring players apart from Lewandowski, while Lewandowski himself seems to be declining slowly. But okay, Hansi Flick proved me wrong. With his dynamic attack, it is now no question at all anymore whether Barcelona can score enough goals in the game. I underestimated Rafinha and Dani Olmo and how they would turn Lewandowski into his old self again. I maybe even underestimated Lamine Yamal. The midfield also seemed to be a problem, because Marc Brenal and Marc Caçador seemed to be Hansi Flick's only defensive-minded midfielders, and Marc Brenal got out injured. But Hansi Flick has managed to successfully use Eric Garcia as a reliable option in midfield. He might not be as natural as the other midfielders, but he's better than Oriol Romeu or Christensen as a defensive midfielder. And with Xavi and Frenkie de Jong returning, it'll really be interesting to see what kind of midfield Hansi Flick is going to play with. So briefly, ever since that video came out, Hansi Flick has proven wrong everything that was said in there, which I don't mind. It just means that Barcelona have been doing really well. I guess I wanted to stay realistic and be critical of Barcelona back then, which is probably an attitude a lot of fans have gotten from watching Xavi's Barcelona. Under Hansi Flick though, it seems that we can actually dream again. This Barcelona team might not be the same as in 2011 or 2015 just yet, but we are getting closer, and Hansi Flick is one of the main reasons why. Sure, Xavi laid the foundations, but Hansi Flick is now rebuilding Barcelona's cathedral, and it might not take that long anymore before it's finished. Thank you, Hansi Flick. So, that was it for today's video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed it, and feel free to share your own opinion in the comments down below. Força Hansi Flick, Força Barça, and of course, have a good day.